Welcome to the Intentional Guy Podcast, where we are driven to help men become more intentional and purposeful in their daily lives. Your host, Michael Chestnut, will interview amazing guests to get insight and glean wisdom from, so we can integrate intentional living and lead happier, healthier, and more fulfilling lives. All right, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Intentional Guy. It is so great to be back with you this week. This week, I want to go a different direction. I brought on a person today that I want you to hear his story, but also let's talk about business. I've heard a lot of people talk about they hate their jobs, they hate different things. We can be intentional. I found out I got to pick where I wanted to work. You know, it didn't have to pick for me. So I am bringing to you today Matt Shoup. Did I say it right, Matt?
You did. You don't have to sing the shoopy doop song.
No, I don't. So, and I'm really bad with names, but you explained that well to me. But Matt, I'm so honored to have you on our show today. I just think there's a lot that you can share with my guys. And so I'm just going to hand it over. If you tell us just a little bit about us, tell us your story, and then guide us into some of these guys that are at dead-end jobs maybe, or looking for a future, what that looks like and how we can be intentional in making some certain things happen in our life.
Thank you. Would love to. I don't like the pretentious bios like the one we spoke offline that's on my website. The bio gets you the credibility to get you in the door to speak. But here's the reality of just who I am in a couple short sentences is I love Jesus. I love coffee, Spanish coffee. I love people. I love business. I love Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. And I love sharing stories with people, all so that my story can meet your story to make your story and our stories better. Because we only get one story, one life. We are all authors of life. And a lot of men that I meet, a lot of men that I coach, a lot of men that follow me or reach out to me, they're lost, they're stuck, they're down, they're out, and they see me or you or whoever, and they put us on this pedestal with this pretentious bio, right? Look at all of the success, right? I'll share how I got there. But they go, Matt, I can never get there until I tell them where I was. And they go, oh, I want to hear about that story. So as we share stories today, I'd love to share where I was before this, how I got there. I found Jesus in the back of a police car, almost dead when I was 19. And that transformed my life. I went on to make $1 million. And in the process of that, I was slowly losing my soul and most likely about to lose my family, my business, my friendships. So let's dig in. Let's do it. Let's have some coffee. Where would you like to start?
I'm almost done with mine.
Stories I'd love to share. Oh, you got the pink drink from Starbucks? What is that?
I did. I'm more of a creamer drinker. Is what I said.
Okay. I'm going to send you some of the Spanish coffee here from our coffee bar. See how you like it.
I'll take it. So, hey, let's start with that in the backseat of the police car, because even though some of us won't want to admit it, there's many of us who found ourselves in that position, if we be truthful.
Yeah. January 1st, 2001, the clock had just struck midnight, celebrating New Year's. About an hour and a half later, 90 minutes later, I'm standing in a field in Fort Collins, Colorado, drunk, I'm high, I'm freezing cold, because it's January in Colorado, northern Colorado. And although I was warm and drunk, I could feel freezing in my body, freezing. And I was trying to just walk home. Now, normally when I was less drunk or completely sober, I knew where I was and where I needed to be was just walking straight for about a half mile, at least from the bird's eye view.
Right.
I was now faced with walking through this neighborhood that I had not walked through before, and I knew that I lived this way. So I just started walking straight. and I'm cold, and I'm as close to death as I may had ever been from all of the drugs and alcohol that I had been and was consuming that night. So leading up to that evening, that was my Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Clean it up Sunday, Monday through Thursday, I'd go get the 4.0 so nobody would know that life was really bad.
Right.
And I was searching for something. I was drinking and drugging and chasing the women, all of these things to deal with this pain and this hurt from my past. But I painted this picture of perfection in my 9 to 5 of college. So I walk into this yard, and because the street ends, I thought the street went through. So now I have to climb this fence to just keep going straight, right? Just keep swimming, like Dory says.
Right.
Just keep walking. And I'm struggling to get over this fence. This fence is beating me. It's about 3 feet tall, and I could have easily climbed over it. So I start kicking the fence, screaming at the fence, cursing at the fence. And while I'm fighting with the fence, I feel the lights of a vehicle, my peripheral, hear the vehicle, feel and see the lights. Door opens, door closes, and this guy grabs me by the collar and the belt, spins me around, slaps me on the hood of his car.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a brown Ford 90s Astrovan. And his wife's in the front seat, baby's in a car seat in the back seat. For a split second, I go, what is this guy doing? And as I'm thinking that, he says, Fort Collins police, put your hands behind your back. Now, although I was drunk, it wasn't connecting. I said, this is not a police car, hands behind the back. This is a brown Ford Astrovan. He was off duty, unmarked. He was just driving home and saw a drunk kid, half dead, just standing there fighting, literally fighting a fence, Michael. Police car pulls up. He passes me over to the on-duty police car. They transfer me. That was actually the first time that I had been in handcuffs, the only time I've been in handcuffs and in the back of a police car. It was cold. It was hard. There's not much back there. There's no
Right.
TV. There's no snacks. And scooping up drunk kids all night. And the officer starts to drive. And the first thing that started happening was you were in corrections, right? It's the police talk. I train law enforcement in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. It's the police talk. What are you doing out there? Do you know you could get yourself killed? Do you know you're breaking the law? It was that kind of thing. And I said, I do want to go home. I think I'm going to throw up in your car. So I'm starting to spin as the car's driving. And looking back, I think he realizes, okay, I've got to either take him to jail or take him home. I need to get him out of the car so he doesn't throw up in the car. And he says to me, hey, look at this screen here. There's a dozen of you guys that we've got to go scoop up. And me and my buddy were like Mario and Luigi there. They were tag teaming. So brown Ford Astrovan's driving around, grabbing kids. Wife's upset, right? She just wants to go home and passing them off to this officer. So as we're driving, he says, are you not so drunk that you know how to tell me how to get home? I said, yes, just go straight. He goes, like, what is your address? Told him the address. And how do you get there? And I think for him looking back, he must have thought that, hey, if I'm still alive enough to do that, I should be okay. And he started saying, hey, have you ever been to the drunk tank? Do you know what happens there? Would you like to go there? So it was this police talk. Right. And we're driving, and then that police talk stops. We have this long straightaway down a main road approaching the apartment complex where I live. And the police talk stopped. That authoritarian, I'm the boss, you're in handcuffs, do what I say, shut your mouth. All of that stopped. And he said, hey, Matt Shoup. So he said, Shoup. He's got the name wrong. He said, what are you doing at 1:30 in the morning, half dead in a field on New Year's? Do you have friends? Like, what's going on? What's happening? What's your story? I said, I don't know. I think I'm going to puke. So I was not coherent enough to tell him, but I do remember him saying, what's your story? And I don't remember really what I said or if I was making coherent statements. He said, hey, let me tell you about what I do. And let me tell you why I was just such an ass to you. And so what he then says, like, oh, okay, maybe there's a reason. He said, because just last week, I was driving down this street in town and I scooped this kid out of a field, and this is what happened to him. And before I moved to Fort Collins, and he worked in a busy metropolitan city, he said, I scooped guys like you out of the gutter, out of the street, out of the ditch, and I didn't take them home. I didn't take them to the drunk tank, took them to the morgue. And then we had to go find their family, drive to their house, and tell their family that their son, their daughter, their relative wasn't coming home. So that's why I want to take you home. And I'm like, oh,
Wow.
I'm going to throw up. So this is the interaction, right? But he drives to the house, opens the door, gets me out, walks me to the front door of my condo, unhandcuffs me, says, Happy New Year. Before you go, I just want to let you know, and I don't know, Michael, I don't know to this day if this was a Christian. He didn't quote a Bible verse. He didn't say Jesus. He didn't do any of that. He just said, hey, Happy New Year. I'm sure there's people out there that love you and care about you and don't want me knocking on their door to tell them what I just told you that I used to go tell people when I scooped up their dead kids. Effectively. Happy New Year. Go home. Go home. Wake up the next day, severely puking, just gross. That's what happens, right? Like, we've been there. Maybe somebody listening has been there. So, what happens. So that January 1st until January 14th was a really pivotal, transformational 2-week season, because leading up to that season, anybody that spoke the name of Jesus, said the name of Jesus, declared the name of Jesus, told me about Jesus, invited me to coffee to talk about Jesus, did so in a way that was not representative of Jesus. And I can share those stories, but a lot of the people in the contact that I have had with Christians were the very stereotypical, right? We've all heard it.
Right.
Sky daddy, Bible thumping, hypocrite, gay hating, whatever that is, right? Give me the list. Somebody who doesn't love Jesus, who hates Jesus, who never wants to have it, bring it on, right? Give that to me, because that's what I gave to everybody, because that was what I had been told. And then as I would meet people that were very imperfectly sharing the story of Jesus, one in particular named Brad, we'll talk about him in a minute, that was all I heard. When you're getting beaten down and cut down and judged and condemned and hated on and bullied and abused, that's so loud, it's so cut so deep, it's so painful. You forget and you don't hear, because there were people in my life over here on this side that were like, Hey, Matt, Jesus loves you. Do you want to get coffee? I know you like coffee, don't you? Yeah, I like coffee, but I don't want to talk about your Jesus, you freaking weirdo. That's where I was at. That's what I said. So that 2-week period, I go, okay, this guy, this police officer, he had the control, power, authority, position, everything. Checked all the boxes, had the badge to take me to jail, punish me, judge me, write me a ticket, MIP, MIC, 19, right? And he didn't. And I probably wasn't pleasant. I didn't smell pleasant, look pleasant, act pleasant. I'm swirling around drunk in the back of his car. And he gave me grace, space, forgiveness, and let me go. And hit me hard, like I'm the kind of guy that has to get hit with what I need to hear. He hit me with it. So that, for some reason, he didn't say, hey, John 3:16. Like, he didn't say that. He didn't stick that on his business card or anything. He said, Happy New Year. Hope you don't die. Effectively, right? So I wake up and I go, I gotta make a decision here. So I read 2 books written by Lee Strobel. Case for Faith, Case for Christ. And if you know Lee's story, he was a Chicago reporter back in the 70s and 80s and hated Jesus, was an atheist, didn't believe in any of that. And he actually quit work for 2 years-ish, right around there, to go out and research, to discredit the story of Jesus. And I listened to him speak about 2 months ago at my son's Christian school gala. Listened to him on stage sharing this story. He said, hey, as a researcher, as a journalist, you have to do the research and come to a conclusion. And when I had to come to the conclusion, I realized I was wrong. And he wrote a book about it. So I read, because I wanted it I didn't want what these people that were loving on me to be true. I didn't want that. I didn't love myself. I didn't know how to be loved. Because the story leading up to that, a lot of bullying, a lot of abuse. I was an easy target, never felt certain, never felt loved, never felt accepted, never felt a sense of purpose till I found business. We'll talk about that. So I'll sum it up with, after I closed those books, I decided that the story of Jesus is true. I'm going to believe in it and follow him and do what he asks. So I gave my life to Christ January 14th, 2001. And you want to hit the applause button, right? I think StreamYard has the applause button. Don't applaud yet, because the next Friday night, what did I do? Same friends, right? So like my life is transformed. That's when I gave it over. Drugs stopped immediately. And so that layer was peeled, that branch was pruned. But my last 22, 23 years, even to yesterday, right, is just this, God is pruning and working in my life and making me a better man. And that's where God came into my life to do that. I was trying to figure that out on my own for a long time. And even in business, when we get into that, Michael, grew a very successful business very fast, multiple businesses, all the awards, all the millions, right? All the money. I was doing it all on my back, my shoulders. I'm tired. Makes you real tired.
Well, I think one of the things you said, a lot of churches that I've come from and things like that, we're expecting people to come through the church already dressed the part. And it doesn't work that way, and Jesus was a friend of sinners. And, for me, I could accept that Jesus loves you. I could accept that, but I could not accept that for myself. For some reason, I could not internalize that. And I'm so thankful, because God brought the right people, which is really important. He brought the right people who could bring that message to me that I would be willing to hear it from.
Yeah.
And I think maybe as people are listening here, they can hear that for the first time from you, knowing that, I think we all feel that way at some point, but God loves you. He does love you. But that is a humbling and a hard thing to accept, especially if when you're carrying a lot of luggage.
Yeah. Luggage or baggage. I'd love to share the difference between those two things.
Yeah.
I love analogies. And as you were sharing that, a couple of things popped into my mind from my story that I'd love to share a little bit more of to help people that are listening to this. Is I was at, we recently joined a new church. I was at service listening to this pastor, and he goes, "Hey, men, it's a men's retreat." And I love this church because this pastor, Carl Sutter, he stands up on the stage, and then he comes right down, stands right next to you. He walks right down next to you, and he goes, "Hey, here's all the sins I committed. Here's where I screwed up. Here's where I'm broken. Here's where I'm on paper should be dead in prison, whatever that is. And God used me, and I'm going to open myself up and be totally vulnerable about all the mess of my life." And and you should see how this church is growing and who it is attracting. And he says that men are wounded, and they have been wounded by men. So because of those wounds from men, they close off to other men and don't get vulnerable with men while they need men. And then the women wonder why the guy isn't opening up, right? We shut ourselves down to protect ourselves. There's biology. It's not like God designed the biology of everything for a reason. Like, we will protect ourselves. And everybody listening here, I would challenge and encourage everybody to explore their story with their father and what that looked like. Because a lot of the stories I hear and patterns that I see is, if you don't feel loved or accepted by your father or the other influential men that were part of your early upbringing, from 0 to 5, 5 to 10, these different phases where you need different things at different developmental ages and ranges, those relationships or lack thereof paints your picture of God. So for me and you, I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel loved. I got my ass whooped on the playground in New Jersey every day.
Let me share something with what you just said. My dad just passed away last week, and we just did the funeral. But for the last couple of months, I've been taking care of him. And my dad, my dad and me, we clashed a lot of times. I was not that perfect person. I knew my dad loved me. I knew my dad cared for me, but he also came from a generation where he didn't say you love it. I love you and things like that. And I know this sounds trite, but one of the biggest things during that time period that I was caring for him, one, I was able to get rid of all that animosity that I had built up, because at this point in time, I'm like, this stuff doesn't matter now. I'm an adult now. He did the best he could. But one of the things that will stick out, and that I'm so glad that I got, it was 5 days before he passed, was my dad. We were having a conversation. He was very lucid, and he was like, for the first time, I heard my dad say, "I love you."
Yeah.
And that impacted me tremendously, because I felt like I had been missing that my whole life. And it wasn't that my dad didn't love me, but it was my perception of that then created other things inside of me, and bad choices and other things like that. So I'm thankful that I was able to have that reflective moment with my dad in the months before he passed.
Yeah.
So that didn't continue to carry into me. Let's be honest, bad choices or other things that would affect me.
Amen. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
So I resonate with that. I really think men, we need to look at that relationship we have with our Father, because it does. I think that's why I had a hard time knowing God loved me, because I never heard it from my dad.
Absolutely. And putting yourself into his shoes, because you're 40. What are you, 40?
I wish. I'm 57. 57.
Oh man, you looking good. I hope I look that good in 15 years. I'm 42, but we grew up in that generation of
right.
Dad goes to work traditionally. Dad goes to work, mom stays home. Don't show your emotions. Come home, dinner better be ready. Like if that's kind of the old school traditional, not everybody grew up that way. But you definitely didn't get on YouTube and watch a Jordan Peterson video back in the 70s or 80s about how men should be emotional, and watch Jordan Peterson cry and break down and see how beneficial and positive that is for men. That just wasn't how we rolled back then.
No.
So
not at all.
You hit it on the head, though. Every male listening to this, do you know? Have you heard? Have you been told? Do you know in your heart 1,000% that your earthly father loves you? And if you don't, that will translate the health of that, whatever the fill in the blank of that relationship will transfer to your faith with God.
It will, definitely.
And now, I would say, there's got to be somebody listening to this saying, Michael, that's great. That's so great that you got to have that experience with your father on his deathbed. And that is great. I know a lot of men that didn't have that. Dad's gone. Yes. They still don't know that.
And what do they do with that?
So what do we do now? So now what? And that's the challenge. And you said a couple of really great points. Is you were able to take yourself out of your shoes, take yourself out of your pain, take yourself out of your story, park that aside, right? Get out of the car that you're driving, that you keep hitting this same pothole with, right? And you jump out of it, and you're like, oh, All I need to do is just move away from the pothole. But what you did is you were able to get into your father's car and see his story, where he came from. And guess what? What's his story? One level up with his father, and then another level up, and then grandpa.
Yeah.
All the way back. I had a really interesting opportunity to read my family's history book from when we arrived here on the boats, the 1700s from Sweden, hooked up with the Germans that were already here, Swedish, German. It was Shoup, actually, Schaub, and I guess it went Shoup. It's cabinet in German, I believe. So, but anyway, we don't really know what our name is. Some of my family says Shoup, some says Shoup. It was Shoup. And anyway, I read back from father to grandfather to like 5 generations up and saw some really interesting themes that gave me some really good perspective. So I would challenge listeners to say, if you don't have a great relationship with your earthly father, and you put that all on him, if you have a chance or an opportunity to explore a couple levels up, you might find some things that are pretty interesting. And you said a great thing. He did everything he could with what he had. You just didn't receive that at the time the way you should have, would have, could have, or needed to. But now you can, hindsight's always 20/20 when you're 57, right? Or I'm 42 or whatever it is. So I hope this helps your viewers and your listeners wherever they're at. Yeah. And I
hope they understand too, if you didn't have, I mean, let's be honest, not everybody had a great dad. Not everybody had that.
Correct.
And and the thing is, that doesn't have to dictate how you're going to be a dad or how you're going to be a man. And we can rise above that because God gives us great examples in the Bible, but also I believe one of my biggest prayer requests is for God to bring godly men into my life to be mentors for me.
Yes. Yep. And God did that. God did that in my life, and God will do that if you ask for that. And I'm always going to be devil's advocate, right? Because I know there's still got, you hypocrite, Jesus loving, Bible thumping, sky daddy believing. No, because that's where I was, right? And so I know somebody still maybe a little bit is you don't want to read Lee Strobel's book. All you want to do, because that's all I did. This is all I did for a long time in my faith story, right? Is think about the people that hurt you. Think about the Christian Brad in the dorms who was hating on you every weekend. If you want to stay in the story that much and don't want to get out of it and focus on all that bad stuff, do this now. Go ahead, do that. Now just do the opposite as a father. Start there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So from a faith standpoint, when I found God, like, I don't want to be like Brad. He was this, he was this, he was this. And I remember this mentor of mine, he knew how pissed I was, right? Because I defaulted to anger, ego, attitude till I was about 30. Mm-hmm. And he knew that. So instead of trying to battle it, because nobody would beat me with that, I'd always win in that department. And he said, you know what? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, this guy was a bleepity bleep bleep. Like, this is the pastor, right? The Bible study. I'm bleepity bleeping Brad, and he's bleepity bleeping me right back. And says, I feel like what God's telling me to tell you, Matt, in a very, very calm voice, how about you just try the opposite of one of those things this week in your next encounter and see if you're 999% angry instead of 1,000. And then I'll see you next week. And he'd just leave. So yeah, God will meet you wherever you're at and use whatever your story is. Because he did that with both of us.
Yep.
Yeah. How else can I help? How else can I help your listeners right now? We can go to business. I love to talk business.
I think I love it. I love it. And I think we do need to shift over to business a little bit because
let's do it.
So God takes you from this now, because a lot of us, we will believe the lie that we cannot be successful. We will believe the lies that we can't do something. And God has not created us to be failures at all. But the failure a lot of times is we focus on that. So how did you push past that and where did you go with this? And tell us this other side now of Matt Shoup that God created and rose up from this.
So as I'm sharing this story, I briefly shared, from the faith standpoint, 0 to 10 in New Jersey, bad foundation, bad soil, getting spit, slapped in the face by the same girl on the playground, catching the whoopings on the playground every day. So I'm scared. I'm an easy target. I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm scared of the world. People don't love me. People are out to get me. And just a lot of language and programs in my life where, everybody's out to get you. And that's kind of how New Jersey was back in the
Right.
80s and early 90s. It's just different. You knew where you stood, and I knew where I was in the pecking order. So as I'm getting bullied in school, 0 to 10, we move out to Colorado. And my first experience with business is I asked my parents for $200 for a boombox, because they now have the CD players on them. And they said, you make $4 a week to cut the grass. Shut up and cut the grass, right? Like, go cut our grass. What are you talking about? Like, get to work. And then $200, that's, let's see, 50 weeks. That's about a year. And I said, I don't want to wait a year. What 10-year-old wants to wait 3 minutes for anything? And they said, go find a way to make your own money. Because I was a little wisecracking. I was very creative. I popped off a lot as a kid. I was diagnosed with ADD, and I'm thankful they didn't give me any drugs, because that is my creative fuel today that has built these businesses. But I was bouncing around like a squirrel on crack in New Jersey when I'm a kid, and I'm getting bullied, and I've got all this energy, and people didn't know what to do. The school would send me home or call my parents. They're like, he's yours till 3:30. Figure it out. So I'd have the little seat in the principal's office. Then I'd have my seat right next to Ruth Rennie's desk in the second grade. And a lot of other teachers were telling me, you're going to go to jail. You're going to go to prison. You're a piece of bleep. I'm like, that's just this is what teachers said in the 80s. They would tell you you're a piece of garbage. You're going to F in prison with this effing guy. Like, teachers say this to kids. That was the language then. So I moved to Colorado, and my parents say, go figure it out. Cool. Give me your lawnmower. I took their lawnmower, knocked on doors, and I've loved telling stories ever since I was a kid. Gift of gab. So I knocked on a little old lady's door. I smiled. I had this big, massive buck teeth headgear, but I had really cool dimples. And she's like, oh, those are cute dimples. Can I have $20 to cut your grass? And I think we negotiated a little bit. She gave me $20 to cut her grass. I made 5 times the amount in 30 minutes. So I did the math. I was really good with math. And I pulled in $2,000 that summer. Bought my boom box, turned 2,000 into 3,000 into 4,000 with snow shoveling, peddling candy. So that was my introduction to business. Now at a face level, at a business bio on my website level, started my first business when I was 10. I learned about marketing and sales. At a deep man story level, as a boy, the main things I needed, love, certainty, acceptance, was given to me by money. So I'm like, you know what? You can beat me on the playground, but you can't beat me in business. So that was my idol. That was my pursuit. That was my goal. That was my focus, was making money. I blew through school 4.0, no problem. I'm just smart. I figured out how to get school done, and I worked hourly jobs after that, always rising to leadership positions. They'd leave me at the restaurant, leave me at the store, leave me to run things. They trusted me, and I was just making that money. Go to college just because everybody else really didn't know what I wanted to do. And a college painting company recruited me from an 8 a.m. biology class. Tell you, on a Monday morning after I just ripped out a weekend of drugging and drinking and chasing girls. And this guy comes in, hey, I made $27,000 last summer learning about marketing and sales. And I look at this guy, I go, I could beat that guy. I'll make 30. Sign me up. And I worked with college painters for 4 years at Colorado State University. Made 6 figures over 4 years, spent 3 times what I made. Met my college sweetheart in the basement of a bar in 2002, after I spent a semester in Spain, which changed my life as well. And I'm debating, do I go back to Spain? I'm in love with this girl. I'm in love with this girl. I'm going to stay here, going to get married. And I knew I was going to start a business. So we're sitting with and I'd just given my life to Jesus right before I went to Spain. So all this is happening. All this is stirring, right? So all these stories are connecting. And I decided to stay here. And I made all this money in college, but painting is not a sexy business. Painting is a very blue collar, summertime, very very out in the sun business. So I graduate, and the optics were really important to me. So I made a bunch of money, but I'm going to go get into the suit and tie business world doing the mortgage thing.
Right.
And it's March 2005. So I'm recently married, figuring out how to get back maybe to Spain. I'm in love with Emily. We're going to start a family. I have no idea. I'm angry as ever, right? Like we talked about. And I'm working at a bank in a suit and a tie, just hating life. I've got a boss telling me what to do, when to do it, how many calls to make. And I was just plotting my escape. So I come into the office on a Tuesday morning, and they have a new bank president in there. He came in, and we heard this new guy was coming in. He was going to change things. Like, oh, maybe I'll like this position more. And I walk into his office, and he's sitting at this big banker's desk, and I stick my hand out to shake his hand. Chad. It's funny. It's Chad, just like the Chad from college in the dorms. Different Chad, though.
Right.
And I go, hey, I'm Matt. Nice to meet you. And he rolls back like this. He pulls back from shaking my hand. He says, put all your shit in a box. You're fired. No, nice to meet you. No, any of that. And then this is what he said. Oh, you're that painter guy, huh? Maybe you should go back, do that painting thing. And kicked me out of the bank. So that was the origin story. I'm standing in a parking lot with all of my professional belongings, and I took the bank name tag with my name on it. So I threw that in the box and flew the finger, kicked the door open. But I'm standing there, and we need to make $2,800 in 28 days. And I had a 12-minute drive home and had to tell Emily something. So I call my painter from College Painters. And I said, hey, what are you doing? He goes, what are you doing? Said, did that bank fire you yet? So they knew it wasn't going to work out. I said, hey, we're going to have a whole bunch of work in about 30 days. Get ready. Because the guys told me when I left, I said, I'm going to get into mortgage, Matt. They said, you're not going to like that. They're probably going to fire you. You're going to work for a conservative bank. I give you about 12 months at best. So we have a good laugh. And I came home, and Emily said, you're home kind of early for lunch. Yeah. Got a permanent lunch. We had a long lunch that day. And really, she just said, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? And I said, I've got this. I'll be back when the sun comes down. And that was the birth of M&E Painting. I took $100, spent $28 on crooked cut business cards from Kinko's, and then another $30 on contracts, estimate proposals. And Tuesday through Friday, I knocked on doors for 4 days. First weekend, we landed $15,000 worth of paint contracts. I had about $20 left that Friday. Then I ended up having 50% deposits on that. So now I had $7,520 in the business bank account. Because people ask me, well, how did you do that? Sounds great. That's literally what I did with the money. And from there, we grew to $1 million business in 3 years, multi-million in 5, all while I was carrying this story of just being upset, angry, with tons to prove to everybody, with money as this pursuit and this idol, right?
Right.
And here we are.
So now how does that, I'm astonished because, I see a lot of intentionality in you. I mean, you didn't let it, a lot of people would have they would have come home, they would have been defeated.
Yes.
And they would have been paralyzed, which is what the enemy wants. The enemy in our life, he wants to paralyze us. And the truth is, God's got greater plans for us. And like, I was stuck at the prison for years. I hated my job, but I
not
didn't
in prison.
have
Working at the prison.
No, I wasn't in prison. I worked there, but it was hard because I didn't feel like there was anything else I could do. Yeah. I felt stuck. And, hindsight's everything. Now I realize with a plan, with a goal, with a drive, I can conquer a lot of things if I put my mind to it. I think, why do some men do it and some men don't? I think it's, and I'm probably way off because I'm, my thinking, but some of it is because they believe the lie that they can't do something. And you definitely can't do something if you just sit there and listen to it. It requires action. And that's why I started Intentional Guy, because for the longest time, I let life lead me instead of me leading life. And life's going to lead you somewhere. If I'm going to end up somewhere, I want to have a say in where I'm going and what I'm doing. And so, how would you encourage guys right now to, you're in that deadbeat job before you get fired? I mean,
Yeah.
where's this tenacity come from? How do you get that?
You said so many great things, and I do a video every morning, Morning Coffee with Matt. It's a 60-second reel on Instagram, Facebook, social media. And I shared 2 or 3 days ago, I said, when your back's up against the wall, when you're at the end of your rope, you're facing that critical decision, and sometimes you need to be pushed there for it to have you make that decision, is you need a plan, you need to take action, and surround yourself with people that are where you want to be. And you said a couple of things is, some people don't take action. And actually, let me back up. Whether it's your faith walk, business, leadership, you're an employee, you're a pastor, you're a janitor, you're a garbage man, you're a scientist, you're a doctor, none of that matters. Life, leadership, business, all of these domains, these titles, the things we do, it's not who we are. But all of this it's just life. It's a journey of a human connecting with another human, serving that human, and we get rewarded in some way, shape, or form. So the behind the curtain of that, it's the same within everything. And when we talk about action, well, some people take action, some people don't. No, everybody takes action. Some person's action is to do nothing. So some action is actually, I'm not going to do anything. So there's choices and decisions, and those words get used interchangeably. So a choice, for example, I walk by that jar. This is a jar right over here in my podcast studio of peanut M&Ms. I'm looking at it. I'll walk by that and I choose to eat one. Then I come back again. I choose to eat one. And you make the same choices enough, good, bad, whatever, that becomes a permanent decision of, I eat peanut M&Ms when I see them. So it's these small choices and stopping yourself from letting these voices get in that will, it's just a peanut M&M. Well, now I ate a 4-pound bag last night or this week. So that you have to have a plan. You have to take action. And again, the enemy is going to hide the lie in two truths and a lie. I saw a great reel on Instagram. It was a female speaker up on the stage. It looked like at a church, and was just dropping it. The enemy hides 2 truths and a lie altogether. And sometimes you can't distinguish what they are. I would share that based on where I came from, and for anybody listening to this, is I was bullied. I was abused. I speak to 2 people from New Jersey. My 2nd grade teacher, Ruth Rennie, just saw her a couple months ago. She's one of my heroes. And my friend Chris Soria, who he and I ran around, got in a lot of trouble back in 2nd grade. All the other kids we ran around with that we know of where they are, 80% of them are dead, in prison, or disappeared. That's where they ended up. That's where we were told we would end up. But how am I sitting here 30 years later, 35 years later from that origin story, successful, right? Multi-millionaire, business guy, author, all of that. It's God came into my story and changed it. And then God placed resources, plan, so I could find a plan, people to drive me to take action. Because if you're saying, well, I don't know how to do any of this, just look a little differently, look around the corner. God will bring those people to your life. Now, don't just sit there and be these Christians. I'm just going to sit and wait till God brings the provision. And I think you're watching Netflix and eating Cheetos. You're watching Netflix, eating Cheetos. God's not going to bring you provision while you're watching Survivor, okay, or whatever you're watching. So don't be that. You have to get up and do something.
And I think you hit that right on the head, because we hear a lot of people want to spiritualize things, and God must not have something for me right now, or God just wants you to get up off your butt and be productive, and have faith that if you take the step, He's going to follow with you. You gave three great things here that I love. One, a plan. A plan. It's I taught at the prison, so I was a transition teacher. So when they left prison, they had to go through me. So
Oh,
I know what you're saying is fact, because if you write out a plan, you have a 45% greater chance of success when you write out a plan. And a lot of people who are not successful, they don't even know what a plan is, or I got it in my head. No, write that out. Be more intentional. Write the plan out and then implement the plan. Take action with it. But you said something that has been life changing for me, and that has been surrounding myself with people who are emulating what I'm searching for, and to
yes.
surround myself with those right people. And God has brought those right people into my life. And so, just those three things you said right there, if my listeners can look at that today, you're in a deadbeat job, or you're in life and you're miserable, right there's the key to success. Three things: write a plan out,
Yeah.
you know, but don't put it in your head. And I get so aggravated when I tell people this. Well, I got it up here. I'm not one of those people I have to write it down. Yes, you're special, but do me a favor, write it down,
Yeah.
because the statistics show it.
Yeah.
Then
Please
put
introduce me to
action to
somebody.
it.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go
Yes.
ahead. Yeah.
But then put your action, go for the actions, and then the people. The people, I think, is so key, what you said. Having the right people in your life that emulated. I wanted to be a better father and husband. I went out and sought those men that I loved how they treated their family. I loved how they treated their faith. I loved there was things they possessed that I wanted. And so I went to them and made friendships with them so that I can be that. And the same way in business.
And have those people. So to add a couple of more steps, because I love the touchy feely story. Yay. But like, here's the steps: plan, action, people, subcategory of those people, right? Indent the bullet points. Those people, positive. They
Yes.
are where you want to be. That's number two. They are where you want to be. They are leveling you up.
Yes.
Third thing, they're holding you accountable to your plan. Fourth thing, they're calling BS when you're not putting in the work and you're getting pulled
Yes.
back to those patterns. Fifth thing, that they're real, that they're brave, that they're vulnerable. So my book, Painted Baby, it's connect with clients or whoever through brave and vulnerable storytelling. We live in this society where we paint a picture of perfection and it prevents
Yep.
true connection. We're posturing perfect life, perfect wife, perfect whatever. That's why I hate the bio, right? That's why, like, don't read the bio. Don't
Yes.
read the bio. That's my painted picture of perfection. What I've found in my life, the people that have really served me, that really serve others, is they're like, hey, here's where I screwed up. Oh, you were almost dead in the field. Here's where I was too. Here's how. So pull yourself off that pedestal and share your painted baby story. Share the story of a time that you
Yes.
massively screwed up. Find somebody that will do that with you. And the leader has to go first. And when you can have just one other man like that in your life, in your walk, in your story, where you can be real, hey, I've made some great progress, but today I just want to go kill somebody. Like, I want to go wrap my hands around another man's neck and squeeze him because I'm angry. Right.
And I find there's a lot of
And I
guys who
need some
just
help.
don't have
Help
that
me, please, so I
accountability.
don't do that. Yeah,
Yep.
they either pull it all in and then they go punch a hole in the wall, or they take it out on their family, or they take it out on a client, or they hold it in, hold it in, hold it in. But no, it's 4.0, perfect life, perfect everything. Then I got a call from a student of mine, a former teammate who now is in the business space, has somebody he works with that had the perfect life, perfect everything, left a note, left a wife, left 4 kids, took his life, didn't come home.
Mm. And I can't help but think there's some people who are listening right now. They need these words that we're saying right now, because you know I I mean, just from emails and letters, I know there's people out there just about to leave their wives. There's people out there who are depressed. There's people out there they feel like they have no purpose in life. And not to over spiritualize things, but That's the enemy. That's not God speaking that in your ear. So if it's not God speaking that in your ear, where's that coming from? That's coming from the enemy who wants to see you fall. And that's why those people are so important in your life. That accountability is so important in your life because those
Yeah.
people in my life, they can see past my BS and they can
Hmm.
see me and they call me out on it
Yes.
and
Yeah.
they lift me up.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful for those people because those people have helped me to become a better version of who I am,
Hmm.
with it. So
Yeah.
if you're one of those people, I just want to encourage you, reach out, reach out into this, take a start, just write a plan, do something. You've got to take a first step. What would you add to that?
Gosh, I'd add three things. And then I think we're getting close to wrap up time. I know
Yeah,
is life, leadership, business, family, manhood, your walk, right? It is the dash you leave on the tombstone. You are born, you die. There's what happens in between. If you strip the titles, the domains, the categories, and you're just a human here on the planet with other humans, you're having interactions with them. And there's this journey of this story. You're literally writing a book. You get to choose the title. You choose the title. And maybe it starts awful. It can end beautiful.
yeah,
Who's writing your book? And let me make sure, Michael, that we hit on everybody listening to this. Because you said it's God or it's Satan, it's the enemy. Let's say they don't speak that language. Well, I don't believe in God. Okay, cool. So let's bring it down to the base level. Who is that person, that awful, slimy person that hurt you in your life, that's part of your story? Are they writing your book? Is that going to be a bestseller? Is that the book you want out there? If you don't like
right.
your book, freaking change it. And
Yep,
I say this with love. Like some people, I want to grab them and shake them just because I love them so much, and they're letting somebody else write their book. So hey, you don't believe in God? Forget that language for a minute. Who's writing your book? Is it your dad that hurt you? Your pissed off uncle that you had to go like whatever that is? Stop that. Just put it down. Write a different book and go find other people that can contribute to that book because a great book is just filled with great stories
yeah,
that teach lessons to somebody that needs to hear those lessons, and you get a chance to do that in life. And I would close with if still at the end of this you still don't think you have anybody, you've got Michael and I. And
yeah,
and I will put these words in your mouth before we end, that because I say this all the time, and I think you and I are going to be spending a lot more time together. As Michael and I both love you, we believe in you, and you've got this. So go get it.
yep. I resonate that all the way. And Matt, thank you so much for being on here today with us and doing this. I want to ask you. I probably will reach out to you again to come more and talk more about business. I
Yeah, I'd
think
love to.
God wanted us to really hit some of the stuff that we hit today because somebody needed it. Um, painted book. Well, tell me about your book,
So Painted Baby started as a business book
baby.
back in 2011. I was about to close the biggest business deal of my life, and I was going into the sales appointment just like I did with everything else in life, painting a picture of perfection. I brought my A+ 5-star shiny marketing brochure. It was 8 pages, full color, and I'm going to close a job that's 20 times the size of my normal job. So if you're going to work tomorrow, say you're going to get a 20 times your salary raise, and you just need to show up and tell the story of why they should hire you. Put my best foot forward, and a client wasn't having it. This was a former client. He said, Matt, we were kind of back and forthing the tennis match of sales and objection handling and all of that. I kept asking him for the business, and he wouldn't give it to me. He takes my marketing brochure, throws it across the office. He says, this thing is crap. Your shiny marketing brochure is crap. I want to know about a time that you screwed up and what you did about it. He asked me to share my imperfection. So I stumbled through for a little bit, and then I told him about a time that we painted the wrong color on a house. not that bad of a thing. Told him about the time we painted the right color on the wrong house. A little bit worse because we did that. And then I said, fine, Bill, we painted a baby. Do you want to hear about that? And I told him the story of 3 years prior, we had a paint sprayer explode on a job site. And this is the very abridged version because I know we're closing up here soon. Mama standing behind my painter, holding her 9-month-old baby. Painter goes to pull the trigger of a paint spray gun, about to spray a door black, semi-gloss paint. And this 1 in a million little jam between the gun and the pistons and all the sprayer jammed, and the paint explodes everywhere, paints a baby. Almost could kill a baby. And that was a very bad moment in business, and we corrected it because bad moments make great leaders show up to see what they're made of. And when we can stop focusing on the failure and share the success and share the glory and how that great leader handled that failure, and then lead with that story, not just in business, but in your walk with Jesus and your walk as a father. Like, this is what we have just been doing this whole time. Brave and vulnerable storytelling is this wave that has been coming for a little while. And the people that are getting in front of it in life, business, leadership, that are catching this wave are going to ride it in and be very successful, because all of this perfect A+ photoshopped Instagram reels, all this, it's crap. It's not real. People know it. We know it. And that's what this book was all about. It's about getting called out, about considering the stories you tell and committing to change them, and then capturing, crafting, and communicating, taking your worst moments in life and business and turning them into your greatest tool to tell a story to connect with another person. Now, I wrote the book to show you how to sell more in business, but I have a gentleman who reached out to me who said he didn't commit suicide, or at least is going to think about it for another couple of days, which, for where he's at, not doing that and thinking about, so I'm blown away. I'm having a really, not hard time, but just a very overwhelming season right now of the response from this book that I wrote for business that is really speaking to people on a deeper level. So if you're not a business guy, but you're just a guy and you need to hear something that I think is going to hit you in a really good way, check it out.
I'm going to pick that up and read it. I'm a reader, and then I'll reach back out to you and would love to go through that book with you on here.
Let's do it.
So I want to encourage my listeners. I'm going to put your links in here so that people can look at that, read it, and then let's come back and talk about it. But I want to thank you for today. I really appreciate everything you just said. I feel like God just really needed someone to hear that, and it was encouraging just to me as well. So
it was great to connect with you before, and I know we'll connect after. And we'll come back. We'll do round 2, round 3. We'll do a series. We'll talk all the business.
And that'd be great, because I do know there's some guys that just really they're struggling with getting that start into business. So we'll come back, and I'm going to get that book and I'm going to read it and see how it helps.
Have these guys, if you're listening, guys, you're listening to this, literally send Michael, communicate, reach out, and give us the specific questions of what you're struggling with.
Oh, that'd be great.
And I think you already hit it, though, is just start. Just take the step. You might not know the plan. We'll talk about the plan. Just take action, take a step, reach out to somebody. Just go ask another business owner to coffee, buy them lunch, buy them a nice steak, whatever they like to do. Say, you are where I want to be, and I don't know how to get there. Could you please fill in some gaps for me? And start there. Send Michael your questions.
It could be they've already got a job. They've already started a business, but they're a little stuck.
And that's too. Yeah, same thing.
Send a question on those, and we'll set up a time, and we'll go through them.
Answer them all.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you all for listening to us tonight. And until next time, just keep being intentional. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Intentional Guy Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show and got some real value out of it. Tell others what you learned and share the podcast if you think they would benefit from it too. Please follow us on your favorite podcast platform, leave a review, and consider checking out our website, intentionalguy.org, to learn more about us and get in touch. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.